The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said to Nicodemus, "Just as Moses lifted up the serpent in the desert, so must the Son of Man be lifted up, so that everyone who believes in him may have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that everyone who believes in him might not perish, but might have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world might be saved through him. Whoever believes in him will not be condemned, but whoever does not believe has already been condemned, because he has not believed in the name of the only Son of God. And this is the verdict, that the light came into the world, but people preferred darkness to light, because their works were evil. For everyone who does wicked things hates the light. It does not come toward the light, so that his works might not be exposed. But whoever lives in the truth comes to the light, so that his works may be clearly seen as done in God." The Gospel of the Lord. The author of the second book of Chronicles is remembering times that were very difficult for the people. After the death of David and Solomon, the leadership of the Jewish people deteriorated, and the people lost their way. The author talks about how the Lord set messengers to the people, set them prophets, trying to guide them, trying to teach them, but the people wouldn't listen, and they chose to live in darkness. 587 BC, the Babylonians invaded Judea and destroyed many of the people, destroyed the city, and destroyed God's temple, and took a number of the Judeans off into captivity. The author of Chronicles holds God accountable for that. He said it was, God was angry, so he allowed the Babylonians to invade Judea. But actually, the truth of it is probably that the leadership of the Jewish people had become so inept that they did not develop relationships with the countries around them, didn't reach out to them, have alliances, work hard at developing relationships. And so when the Babylonians swept into that area, they overran Judea because they had no reason not to, because they did not care for them. In spite of the people's resistance to God's love and his outreach to them over and over again, after 50 years in Babylon, God sent them someone else. It wasn't a prophet, it wasn't a messenger, it was a pagan. It's a pagan king named Cyrus. The Lord reached out to Cyrus when he invaded Babylon and gave him directions to set the people free. It's an image of Moses. And so Cyrus came to the people and told them that he had been charged by God to build a house in Jerusalem, and everyone who is among these chosen people were to go home. And Cyrus made that happen. People listened to that. They listened to that. They moved into the light, and under Cyrus's protection and help, they went home. This incident is an example of what St. Paul is referring to in the Ephesians. God, who is rich in mercy, Even though the people were not faithful, they did not stay loyal to God, but chose to live in the darkness, to do evil, and to reject the Lord's prophets. God loved them nonetheless and brought them life. St. Paul is saying this similar thing has happened with the coming of Jesus. He says that when we were dead in our transgressions, the Lord brought us to life with Christ. By grace you have been saved. Not because of anything we've done specifically. We don't deserve to be saved. But God in great mercy reaches out to us. And that he sent his only begotten Son to save us. In the gospel, we hear the second part of the visit that Nicodemus has with Jesus. Nicodemus is a Pharisee, but he's afraid. He's afraid of the leadership. And so he comes to Jesus in the darkness. Even Nicodemus is living in the darkness. And he reaches out to Jesus, try to figure out who is he and what should Nicodemus do about him. But as we hear in the gospel, Jesus is the Son of God, and he has been sent to save us. Later in the gospel, a statement is made by the writer that the light came into the world, but the people preferred darkness to light. Very much like the people that went to Babylon. They too were living in the darkness. God comes to them over and over again in the light, and they refuse. And so in the gospel, we're encouraged to be open to the light, not to rest in the darkness. Our culture, unfortunately, has a lot of darkness. Maybe it always has. Maybe we just know about it better now. But we're called not to live there. We are to live in the light. We are to be people of hope. We are to stay away from people who live in the dark. How can you tell someone who lives in the darkness? For one thing, they don't care about you. They're all into their own issues. They're into power. Selfish, self-centered, insensitive to the needs of others, and care only about themselves. That is an antithesis to the gospel, where Jesus came to save us, and the way he saves us is to die so that we may live. And that's how people of light are to live. Die to self so that others may live. It's the whole point of Christianity. We must care about the brothers and sisters. If we don't help them, we don't reach out to them in their suffering, isolation, and we cannot love God. The two go together. Jesus was very clear on that. You do not love your neighbor, you cannot love God, because God is in his people. And so during this Lent, as we are moving now along, we're at the Fourth Sunday of Lent, we're called to look for ways that we maybe have slipped into the darkness. Maybe it's happened slowly. Maybe we've been convinced by people we listen to, people on the radio or TV or things we've read. We've slipped into the darkness, in a world that's full of hate, uncaring, racism, xenophobia, and a rejection of everyone not like us. That's the darkness. And we're called not to be there. As Christians, we're called to follow Jesus and to live in the light, to reach out to our brothers and sisters in love and mercy as God reaches out to us each day. And in that way, we prepare on this journey for the Easter mysteries. Holy Week is not far away. Neither is Easter. But we still have this time to get ready. Find a way that we have slipped into the darkness and change that. Move into the light. Find ways to support the work of others, to do the work ourselves, reach out to the poor, reach out to those in need, reach out to people in our families or our friends whom we are estranged from. Bring peace to the relationship. Jesus came to save us, and we are called to be people of light. We are people who are saved.